Denise. I got Neil here. What's going
Hello.
on, folks? Let me
So
see.
please, if there's anybody in the chat, please announce, say hello, join in, contribute. We've got a lot going on these days happening, not only here in town, but apparently nationally too.
Kristen
say
is
hi
here.
and let us know. So Denise, we had a big thing happen on Sunday. We interviewed the town supervisor of the town of Walk Hill, Frank
Yes.
Dandanto.
Yes, we
So
did.
what'd you think? That was a pretty good interview. I thought he did pretty
Yeah,
well.
I mean, we were on for quite a while. It was a long interview. We covered a lot of topics. Having both you. Hey, Kristen. Um, um, there was a lot that was covered. Obviously, for me, it's a learning experience, right? Because I've never been an elected official, so having you guys sort of talk back and forth and talk about the experience and of what was happening at the time that when you were in office and what happens really in other towns as well. I mean, the issues of corruption. Um, it isn't just happening at the bigger level, right? It happens in your backyard, and most of the time we don't know. And so you guys got to go back and forth about that, and I thought it was interesting. What comments can you say that you got from it?
I think that that's really the shame, and we listen. We talk about a lot of topics. One of the topics that we really don't delve into is education, right? I mean, just basic civics. We teach U.S. history. We have governmental classes, and I know that here in our area, in the governmental classes, they do try to broach the topic in a sort of way of local government. But the fact is most people, most adults, they have absolutely no idea what their local government does for them. And their local government is really the only like real tangible, like, you give your money, you're getting $1 back, right? Like, you give $1 to your town, you're getting $1 back. I mean, that infrastructure really maintains your investment. And when I say your investment, if you're a homeowner in your community, right? What keeps your property values? It's not just you maintaining your home, right? Like, what are people looking for? When they're looking for a home, they look at the school district,
Hi, Mary.
right? They look at your infrastructure. They look at municipal water and sewer. They look at the idea of what's the zoning like around that area, and they also look at your roads. Okay, are the roads going to take a toll on your vehicle? And I really think people, they don't understand, like, that's their local government that does that for them. And when your local government doesn't know what they're doing, right? Like, the people you
Yeah.
elect don't know what they're doing, right? Because remember, I'm saying most adults don't understand what their local government does. So they're just sending their neighbor. They're like, you go handle this. I don't want to handle it. You won't handle this. You're a good guy. I trust you.
You know,
What does
for
that
here
mean?
for a lot of the people here, okay, I know some people here are some of our audience is very much engaged in town politics. But if there's somebody new here, unfortunately, I can't see the list of people. If you're either new here or if you're someone who's never gone to a town hall, um, you know, speak up, and we can kind of give you an idea of what that's like. Like before, before I started doing this, and I don't think I'd been to a town hall, like maybe ever, except when something recent came up, and it was because of an issue came up within the town, back last summer, that really got me engaged, and learning, getting to know Neil. Neil has been my local town councilman, and so getting to know him, I learned a lot about what happens in local government and never gave a shit before. Like we only look at what's happening either in the state capital or in the capital, and nobody's really looking in the backyard, and it can be pretty bad. So
Everybody, a lot of people talk about like taxes, right? Everybody say my taxes go up. I pay so much in taxes. I pay sales taxes. I pay income taxes, right? And at the end of the day, they don't manage your local roads. They don't manage your water and sewer. Those taxes
that's true.
don't really go to those things. Your taxes, right? Those type of taxes, they go to the state and federal government. State and federal government give very little back, right, to the local government, right? That's what we talk about when we talk about local control. When you hear somebody talk about home rule or they talk about local control, that's what they want. They want more dollars. They don't want a grant coming that's earmarked for something. We need money so that the property taxes aren't so high. Okay? We need to be able to pay for the basics, our employees, right? Our pension costs, our benefit costs, right? Everything is so high. Our costs are so high, right? And the only avenue we have really for raising money, okay, is taxes, is property
Yeah.
taxes. And I think people just don't really understand that. Like what we get in sales taxes, what municipalities get in other types of taxes and grants and all that other kind of stuff is very, very small in comparison. Here in the town of Waco, we get a lot of sales tax money, which is
Yeah.
great, but and you can rely on it to some degree, right? Not a lot. You certainly wouldn't want to bank all of it.
Yeah.
But it just, people don't understand, what their money is actually paying for. And locally is the only thing you really have the ability to see where those dollars are actually, where you can see those dollars being reinvested into your community. Everything else doesn't. So don't complain about your local politicians so much in terms of that, right? Like blame your state and federal politicians when it comes to investment in your community. Okay, the only thing you should be looking at your local government for is management of your local finances. That's it. That's their job. Okay, everything else is just sort of like the topping on the cake. You got to do the cake, you know otherwise it's just icing.
Yeah.
Okay, and icing gets you nothing. Okay, you need to have the cake there, and that's what we need to get back to. We need to get back to, and that's what Frank is gearing us towards, is getting back to the cake. Making the cake, doing it the right way, and building a sustainable economy and future for this town.
Yeah. I would benefit from a 101. Yeah. Civics 101. Like it should. I think what you're saying here is that we should have it should be a class in grade school, like at least in sort of at least in high school, enough to understand, because as those kids are getting older, a reason to be engaged in what's happening within their communities, as well as in state federal government. So, oh
I think we should all. I mean, the one thing the administration up top, the federal administration, has taught us, right, is we should all. Everything is politics. Everything is political. Okay, your entire life is predicated on some type of politics. If you work a 40-hour work week, right? Politics made that happen. Okay, if you're a woman and you vote in this country, politics made that happen. Okay,
good point.
you know, politics is everything. Okay, as much as you kind of want to say I hate politics and I don't want it to be everything, the fact is if you don't ask, you don't get. And Mamdani has taught us that in New York City is the fact that we are tired of asking our politicians to do the right thing only for them to fail.
There you go. Yeah, good response. So hey, so uh, welcome to TOWSW. Is that a Tau? Town of something? Welcome to the stream. By the way, I think you're someone new. So yeah, it's great to see so many people here. We got some more people. Um, First of all, if you do you have does anybody have questions for us, or even questions about the interview? I don't know if anybody here saw it. It was a lengthy one with Frank. We went over a lot of things, and uh, we learned about the flow chart and how state tax. That what was that? Ah, thank you.
That was the
There we go.
state, but that's how the New York State budget is formulated. That's the flow chart of how they start the New York State budget and all the different levels of government, right? That it has to go through before a bill becomes a law, right? Like we hear that bill becomes a law. Before a bill becomes a law in New York State, it goes through many hands, right? It sort of reminds me of have you ever seen Ford versus Ferrari, the movie Ford versus Ferrari?
That sounds very familiar. Yes, I think I have seen it. It's an
Okay,
older.
so
It
there was
has an
this
older movie, right? Not too
right,
old,
yeah,
but
and somewhat not too old, but Matt Damon plays the lead character, and he's talking to the character, Henry Ford Jr., right?
yes.
And they're passing around this folder, and he goes, "How many hands did that folder go through before it got to your hand? How many committees had to basically have their input hands into what was just given to you in that folder, right?" And that's sort of like New York government. New York government is just it's too much bureaucracy. There is a lot of bureaucracy here, without a doubt.
Really.
You know, it's like it's sad at the same time as you kind of like in certain instances you could see, okay, that was necessary, but New York has never gotten to the point where it's done a fiscal review on itself to determine, like, okay, what really isn't working, right? What we decide is if something's not working, we just don't fund it as much and we put it in a corner, right? I mean, that's sort of the way New York is, so that way we can't say we failed at something, right? It's just, well, that program is over here. It still exists, but it's kind of over here, and we're going to do this new program, right? But the old programs are still here. It's like we have to keep doing better. We have to keep doing better.
And orange covering eyes. That is interesting. Yeah. Covering eyes, hear no evil, see no evil. It's kind of yeah, and thing is we need to have our eyes open. If we've learned anything about what is happening in federal government, because I had an exchange with someone who was very frustrated with what is happening in government and is just frustrated with all the parties and wants to basically check out. And you know what? I can understand that frustration, but that's exactly what they want. They want you to be frustrated. They want you to think your vote doesn't matter. They want you to think you should just throw the towel in and let what's happening just happen. It's kind of the reason why the corruption is in our faces now, to make you feel that you can't do anything about it. That's what they want you to feel. And you absolutely have to be engaged. Everything from the ground up. It sucks, but that's how democracy works.
It's also more insidious than that too, right? Because the Republicans have clearly shown themselves that they represent, okay, the elite in this country, the billionaires in this country,
Yes.
right? You know, that working class people they've just completely abandoned. But at the same token, what are the Democrats offering? they're offering the status quo, right? They're not offering anything new to the table, and in fact, all they're trying to sell you on is well, you know, don't say anything negative about us, right? Because if you say something negative about us, the other guy might win, and we're slightly better than that guy, right? I mean, that's as somebody, right? Like as somebody who has worked my entire life, okay, and is now middle aged, okay, I hear that and I say no, absolutely not. You know what? It didn't work in business. It doesn't work in government. It doesn't work in politics, right? Your politicians listen to you once every like 2 years or once every 4 years. When they're up for election is when they listen to you. Okay? As Democrats, we would be remiss, right? And it would be in our to our detriment if we didn't hold them accountable during election season,
Yeah.
one way or the other. Whether they are the only candidate we are going to vote for or not, now is the time, okay? Because after election day, we ain't getting jack shit because they're just going to go with whoever gives them the money. So now is that our time.
And
Unless
that's
you're
what
unless you're progressive. If you're progressive, that could be different. Maybe that's the way we need to go now. Is get in more progressives.
Well, I think you've said that before, like
Yeah.
both parties have just shifted further and further and further to the right, and the progressive line of politics is really where the center is. It's really where the center is, and we've talked about that many times here. You know, you need to look. We have a lot of money that's invested in our politics. To through these PACs, CPAC, APAC, America PAC. It's a Trump PAC, right?
The
This
alphabet soup of PACs.
the alphabet soup of PACs, exactly.
Right.
And these people, and a lot of this money, by the way, and I watched learned a little bit more about that today. A lot of that is money coming from outside the country. APAC, CPAC. You have Israel, Russia, Hungary, all investing in this kind of stuff. And we need to look at candidates, right? It's primary season. We need to look at candidates who are not being backed by these PACs. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them out there. And they're being bombarded by advertising for these billionaire backed candidates on both sides. On both sides. So look for the people who are more grassroots. Find out what their platform is, regardless of where you live. Find out what their platform is. You might find that think about it, right? Right? A working class candidate is going to be more interested in working class values, what we need, what the bulk of the population needs, and you know, isn't running for the benefit of the billionaires, because that's what we have now. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we have. This I keep hearing these Democratic candidates come out and talk about Big Tent, okay, but the Big Tent only seems to be for the billionaires, right?
Yes.
So you have the 1% of the population, right, representing most of what the Democrats stand for. Okay? And really, the basic necessities of what Democratic politics should be about in terms of working class, creating jobs, right? Strong unions, strong labor, right? Like that's the foundation of this country. The foundation of this country was never billionaires or millionaires or any of that stuff. That was never the foundation of this country. This country was built by immigrants and work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
By
and
people.
I don't understand how we've gotten away from that. We had a congressman who we have congressmen that are putting forth bills that want to make free speech illegal because it's
Yes, I
not it's not their speech. It's not what they agree with, and that's fascism.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
fascism is really like, you know, one of the top two things is the government control of the economy, okay, and the stifling of free speech, and that is exactly what we're seeing, right, at almost all levels of government now. It's really kind of scary shit. And if we're not diligent, we're going to lose our democracy in this country, and we've already lost a lot more. And I really hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's another crash coming. There is
Yeah.
another crash coming. Okay, giant bets against the tech industry right now. Okay, and if you hadn't heard about the private equity markets or private credit markets, okay, they're about to go under. Okay, they're about to crash. And right now, the big large banks are going out and getting credit default swaps against this market. If you don't know what a credit default swap is, that's insurance against their bet in the private credit market, right? They made a bet, they're about to lose on that bet, so now they're taking out insurance. Who's who's
What's
going to
going to?
be backing that insurance? Who backed the insurance, these default swaps in 2008? Okay? It was
Mm.
us. It was the taxpayer. Our
Yes.
pensions lost huge amounts of money. Our pensions, our 401ks, everything lost huge amounts of money. And these billionaires, right? They made billions. They
Yes, they
are
did.
richer than they've ever been before. They didn't lose a dime and they got bailed out.
By
Okay?
us.
And this is going to happen again. We are headed for this again. This is actually happening. Not to mention, right, you have gas prices going up. Gas prices aren't coming down anytime soon.
No. No, they're not.
So while we are all going to be getting poorer and nobody's going to be able to retire in a few years because there won't be any money left, okay? Because the billionaires have taken it all. They are leaving us all in debt. This is what Trump and his billionaire buddies have been doing from day one with every company: Toys R Us, Sears, Kmart, everything. Right?
Yes. Looking.
It's
Hang
now
on. I'm looking
happening
for
with
it.
the United States. So, just keep this in mind. We need to do better. We all need to do better when picking people. And if you have nobody good running, or you don't like anybody who's running, run yourself. Seriously, do it.
Yeah, you're right. He's made a lot of money off his crypto scam. A lot of money off of that. And the president of the United States is $4 billion richer since he started his second term here.
So, the TOWSW asked a very good question. It's hard when people of one party disguise themselves as another party to get support and run. How do you know who you're really voting for? You got to ask them questions, right? You got to understand the position that they're running for and ask them tough questions about things that you care about. Okay? See what their voting is. And then have some critical thinking. Okay? Like I saw so not I know everybody's gonna bash me about this, but you look at a guy like Pat Ryan. Pat Ryan has been very, very good these days, right? Pat Ryan is our congressman, right, from the 19th district here in Orange County and Ulster County, in Dutchess, I believe. He represents some of that area, and he's been very good. Especially with his the anti-ice stuff and abolishing ice. He has gone very progressive, and he also gave his money away that he had gotten from Palantir. I give him credit for all
Real,
that stuff,
really?
right? That's what he said he did. He was going to do, right? He got $90,000 from Palantir and he gave it back. But what did Palantir get in exchange, right? For for the money he gave him. Well, we have to look back to, a few years ago when Biden was in office. He was one of the guys that voted to ban TikTok. Okay. Whatever you want to say about spying, first of all, the U.S. government is spying. We're going through that right now with the FISA court, right? So we know our own government is spying on us. Okay.
On
That has never
steroids.
been questioned. The Patriot Act has allowed that. We also know that private companies are the ones actually doing the spying on us. Edward Snowden told us that, right? Like, I mean, he
Yes,
was
I
the one
remember
that
that.
published that through WikiLeaks. He had said that private companies are gathering the data and giving it to the government and storing it in these data warehouses. Okay, so we know that, right? We also know that these private companies are willing to sell our information to whoever wants to buy it. Okay, because that's
Sick, right?
capitalism, right? There is no privacy once our information is out there on the web. So, and we just learned today, it came out today, that Thomson Reuters gathers all the public information on us and has been providing it to our government. Okay, and providing it to ICE. ICE is creating a database based on information being gathered by Thomson Reuters, right? And their ClearGov, which is, or not ClearGov, but their Clear whatever it is, right? That law enforcement uses to basically gain all the information on us when there's warrants and all that kind of stuff. So we know that all this information exists and is sold to the highest bidder. China's buying the information. They don't need to like steal the information. They don't need to track us. They don't need to get into our phone. They make the phones.
Right?
iPhones are made in China, right? Like, I mean, the ridiculousness of that vote, right, right from the get go, right, was something for me that said, okay, right, that set off red flags because now what you're telling me is that you're anti-capital. Those that voted are anti-capitalist, anti-free speech. Okay, whatever you think of TikTok as an entity, they are a corporation, right? If you looked at it, they were owned by Carlyle Group, right? I know everybody talked about ByteDance, but it was Carlyle Group and BlackRock that owned them, okay, which are two
BlackRock,
U.S.
really?
investment companies. And if the government really wanted to take action against TikTok, what they would do is they would sanction BlackRock and Carlyle Group. But that's not what they did. They forced the sale to Larry Ellison.
Yeah. Larry Ellison, who was quoted as saying, like, he's involved in surveillance too, and he was quoted as saying something to the effect of, this idea of privacy is passe. He said, we're going to have surveillance and we're going to be able to watch everybody. Everybody is going to be on their best behavior, he was
Right.
quoted as saying, which
Right.
lets you know what we're living, living in the surveillance state.
And that's and you said it and you hit the nail right on the head. That's exactly what it is, right? It's setting up a surveillance state. So what they did was they didn't like the fact that they didn't have access to what's most valuable, which was TikTok's algorithm. And they wanted the algorithm. And if anybody who's been on TikTok has known that 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 they are now manipulating the algorithm
Oh yeah.
to send you what they want you to see. So now it's become more government propaganda, more American government propaganda, and getting anything outside or anything even in your own interests, right? Like you're getting stuff that you know it tells me that this is what they wanted. And as I said, I like Pat Ryan. He's a nice guy, right? But that one vote gives me pause. Like, why? Why was that vote necessary? Why did you do that? Who paid you to do that? You know, like who is your ultimate master here? Is it us? The consumer or your residents or your constituents, or is it somebody else? You know, as I said, I like the guy. I'll probably be voting for him in the fall, but it's just one of those things. Like, why?
Well, that's a good question. And, for those you call him, leave a question, talk to his staff, say, why did,
Oh, I've
oh, you've
asked many
asked?
times. Oh yeah, I've asked many times, and I get the same bullshit answer. I get the
What's the
same bullshit
answer?
answer. Oh, oh, China's spying, and it was a Chinese owned company, and I was like, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. There are plenty of Chinese owned companies in the United States. Like, I mean, China assembles the phones that we have. In fact, if you look at the way China operates, right, because they're a communist country, most of American businesses have outsourced to China now,
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's been
right?
going on for a
Not only
while.
that, our most of our food supply is now owned by Chinese companies, right?
Yeah,
Like,
Smithfield pork
right,
is one.
90% of the pork, right, that we eat in this country is owned by China. You put our food supply in the hands of somebody you're saying you don't trust, okay, with our information because of TikTok. It, like, again, there's just a lot of stupidity, and what I'm trying to understand is where's the critical thinking for Americans to be like, it doesn't, none of this makes sense. Okay.
Well, that's the point of the propaganda, to keep us confused and guessing. And, you know, you can't trust the media anymore. It's all bullshit. So people check out of that, when in fact we should be holding media accountable in the same way we should be holding our elected leaders accountable. Right? When our elected leaders fear us is when we'll get change. But as long
What
as we're checked out and not aggressive about pushing them, they'll do what they want.
And that's why I'm saying this is the one time of year, right, during election season, that they listen to us. So why not try to hold them accountable to some of the things that we want? Like a wealth tax, or
Yes.
healthcare, or
Yes.
infrastructure, or whatever it is.
A
Like,
living
I mean,
wage.
like something, anything. I mean, what did we get? Energy prices are spiking in this country. You have the administration release say, okay, we're going to release the strategic oil reserve. Gas prices are hugely. So instead of keeping that gas in this country, okay, what are they doing? Right? There are 90 boats lined up ready to take our oil from our country and bring it to another country because we gave it away to the corporations, right? The
Yep.
large oil companies, who then sold it to the highest bidder. And the highest bidder wasn't us.
Yep. That's it. That's it. That was a big one. Yeah. If any of you follow other podcasters, I highly recommend following Mr. Global. He's a former oil man. He's an expert in the oil industry, and it was through him that we learned that the United States, instead of selling, like the U.S. could have sold the SPR and taken those funds and maybe distributed it to the gas stations or found a way to supplement the higher cost of fuel for us. But no, Trump loaned those reserves, 172 million barrels, to the corporate oil industry. And as we know from COVID, with the EEOC, whatever those loans were, those emergency loans, they were all forgiven. Who's to say that this administration won't forgive $172 million in loans, which on 172 million barrels rather of oil, right? And if so, that's our tax dollars. We bought that oil.
The nobody cares anymore. Everybody, this is what kills me is I see people walking around wearing the American flag and saying how patriotic they are, but nobody really cares. That's what kills me is nobody. You tell people this and they're like, oh, but it'll all work out, and yada yada yada. And it's like no, you don't understand. You are getting robbed. You're getting robbed at every level of government. Your tax dollars, right? I think Hassan Piker said it, right? The more money that they keep shipping overseas, the more money they keep pouring into these endless wars, right, is money stolen out of your pocket.
Yeah. Well, he's
Period.
right. He's absolutely right.
Okay.
Interesting. Does anybody have any comments or have any questions regarding that? How do you feel about this? Do you feel like you're getting fair treatment from this government?
Any government,
Any
state,
government.
local, any government. Is there any government where you feel that things are that are confident that you're confident that things are going the way that they're supposed to be going? You know.
Yeah, people are quiet because you can't be confident.
No.
But what I will say is, more I'm learning, it seems more and more people are, in fact, waking up. People who really weren't engaged, people who didn't really, politics shouldn't be in our faces the way it is now, but people who just ignore it, they just put the blinders on. A lot of those people they're opening their eyes. The fact is that the promise was things were going to become more affordable, right? And they're not, right? Everything is more expensive. And when it comes to your pocketbook, that usually gets people's attention. And so a lot of people are frustrated. I mean, Trump is absolutely that is his lowest metric when it comes to polling. He's pretty much he's falling very close to into the 20s. I think he's down like down to 32% in some places. So
Democrats are still worse. Democrats are still worse.
but Democrats are worse amongst Democrats because
Yes.
Democrats are getting frustrated with the party not standing up and fighting. Right? They want people to
Yeah.
they want the party to fight more, and so it does show that people that Democratic voters are wanting to hold their elected leaders accountable, and so the polling shows that you don't see that as much with Republican voters. Huh.
But here's the thing that what you have that is the major problem with Democrats. Okay. And yep, I got it. This is the major problem. This is the major problem with Democrats. Okay, and I'm going to tell you exactly, or at least the corporate Democrats. Progressive Democrats have been different. The corporate Democrats. This is what is the most frustrating thing about them. Okay, is that they are the only time that they fight is they fight Trump. Okay, they go after Trump. Okay, and that's it. Okay, and Democratic voters, honest to God, they really don't care about Trump. They don't like Trump, but that's not what they want. Okay, if you look at what Mamdani is doing, Mamdani's saying it's not about Trump. It's not about your politician. It's not about me. It's about you. It's about affordability and you being able to live in this city. Okay? It's about having affordable housing. It's about being able to stay in the city and raise a family. Okay? Right? This is what we all want to do. And we were sold an American dream of listen, you work a 40-hour work week, you work hard, right? You put some money away, you could retire, when you're 60 and life is good. And what we're now understanding and seeing firsthand is that these were battles that we fought for. They
Yes,
weren't given
that's
to
right.
us, right? And when you look at something, right? When you fight for something, right? That means that you didn't have it at one point. And if you
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
have it
good
at
point.
one point, that means that it could be taken away from you again. And that's
And
what
that's
we're
what they're
seeing
doing.
now, right? We're seeing that we've become complacent. We stopped fighting for the basics. We stopped fighting for our dreams, okay, and have gotten caught up in their rhetoric, okay, and people have decided I'm not going to vote. Politics isn't for me because politics isn't representative of what I care about, which is me and my family and me being able to earn a living and not have to worry about some of these things. That's for somebody else. I don't want to worry about getting nuked. Okay, I just want to go to work in the day, come home, see my family, see my daughter, and just know that everything is going to be all right with me. That's my American dream. That's what the American dream is for most Americans, right? But and Mamdani is showing us that. He's showing us the path.
Yeah. Yes, he
Okay?
is.
And progressive Democrats across this country are winning with that same message. They are fighting for something, not against something. The corporate Democrats, you can tell the difference. This is how you can tell the difference. The corporate Democrats are going to fight against something, right? The Democrats that you want are going to be fighting for something. And the thing that they're going to be fighting for is you. Okay? And they're not just going to tell you, they're going to show you in their actions. Right? I'll go back to Kat Ghazali, right? She set up
a candidate.
Right, in her campaign office, she set up a food bank, she set up a rescue bank, like she set up everything. She had coordinated volunteers who were bringing food to people. I mean, that's somebody who's walking the walk. And that's what you have to look at. You have to look at somebody's actions, not just what they're telling you,
Yeah, I agree. And then there's other candidates out there that are obviously Graham Plattner is getting a lot of attention of late, and he's way, from what I understand, he's up in the polls too in that state. And who is it? Susan Collins? Is that's
against Susan Collins? He's running against Susan Collins.
Susan Collins,
but that's
she's
Mills
a corporate Dem.
is the primary. No, Mills is the corporate Dem.
Oh, okay.
Collins is the Republican who is the current seat holder.
Okay, so there's this is for the primary then. So
yeah, this is for the primary. Yeah, but people like Afton Bain, we lost her, right? Like she ran for Congress, she lost, and now she's staying she's not running again. It was a special election. She's not running again. She's decided to stay in the state house in Tennessee. And that's really sad because she could have been a good voice at that level, a good female voice at that level who was progressive, right, and really wanted to fight for her constituents, and that's what we need. We need people who are willing to fight for Americans, for us, for workers, for those that live and work and bleed and sweat in our communities day in and day out, okay? Not the billionaires who fly in or fly over.
And absolutely. Let me see. It's interesting because I was watching. I have to look it up. There is a candidate running in Tennessee, very progressive young woman that I forgot her name. She was on with Tennessee. Oh God, what's this? I only follow him. I have to look up the people that I follow. I follow so many people, let me tell you, that I lose track. But this Tennessee, oh my God, I'm going to look him up. Hang on. And I'll tell you who the candidate was because he did an interview with her and she was just fantastic. Sounded very, very Afton Bain-like. You would like her, and I will get you her name. All right. Me time. Hang on. My God. Tennessee Brando. That's who it is. Tennessee Brando. Yes. Okay. And let me see. Here she is. What's her name for Congress? I will. MAGA kicked her out. What is the candidate? Christie for Congress. Christie for Congress, young woman. She looks maybe she's 30. If she's that old, subscribe here. Let me see if I can get her Name her. Her
Age
name.
doesn't mean anything when you're running for Congress. Everybody, every
Personally,
level should be represented. Everybody should be represented.
let's see. Oh, he doesn't put her name. You couldn't put the name in the description. I have to go watch the video. That's right. Okay, so interesting story. She was a she went into like a town hall where the MAGA person, it was the MAGA's town. I guess they're the ones that hold the seat right now, and she was thrown out for asking a question, and she went and decided to run against her because she was thrown out for asking a question that made this particular, that whoever this
Right.
congressperson is that's holding this seat uncomfortable, because that's, we've seen that since the beginning of this administration, even with pulling Republicans out for asking questions, asking to hold their Republican leaders accountable. They're dragged out. So that got this young woman to run, and so she's running. I think she's running in the primary now, and hopes to be able to run for Congress against who that person is. And I'll find out who. I know her name is Christie, but I got to get the last name, who she is. But it's that kind of energy that we need, right? Right, from, and we're seeing it from the younger generation. Some of us old farts are so set in our ways that we're not standing up as much. And the young people, they see the writing on the wall. They see the lack of, the how opportunities are getting less and less for them, how the cost of housing is exploding out of reach, how job salaries are going down. They see these data centers going up. They see these billionaires looking to replace millions of jobs with AI and robotics. My mother of all people, sent me a video of Bernie, because Bernie put out another one of his videos. He's I guess he's entering a bill to put a moratorium on the data centers throughout the country, which I think is a great idea. And he talked about how these AI tech billionaires are looking to replace us. And so young people like Christie, like Captain Bain, like Kate Abigazala, they see that there isn't going to be as many opportunities for them and for their families, for their futures, unless they stand up and they speak out. So, you got to keep your eyes on the younger generation.
I listen. The data center. There's already going to be a moratorium on on data warehouses. I mean, we're already seeing
With
it.
the
There, 15 of them have now been put on hold for at least the next 2 years because of the fact that the chips aren't there, the energy isn't there, right? Like, I mean, so and AI ain't replacing anything. As I said, there's about. I mean, I've talked about the guy a lot, Michael Berry, who was featured in the book, the Big Short. Right, he made a fortune of money off of the 2008 crash, right? The derivative
Yeah.
bond market crash. Okay, um, and here now we have he's taken a huge bet against AI data centers. Okay, he made a huge he took a huge short position against AI data centers. It's coming down. It's not going to happen. No, it just was announced, I believe, in the Wall Street Journal that most companies aren't really going into AI, right? That they really don't help work productivity, right? It allows for more, it's a nice tool to have, and it's a great tool for employees, but it's not replacing employees, is essentially what they're saying. So a lot of those people who are laid off are going to get rehired. This is what the young generation is seeing, is the lack of opportunity.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
what they are seeing is if they want good opportunity, well, they have to go into huge amounts of debt to get an education, right? Well,
Yeah.
why should they have to go into huge amounts of debt to get an education, to get a job that doesn't pay them? Okay, it doesn't make sense anymore, right? the math ain't mathing with the younger generation because it doesn't math for the older generation either. The only people who are benefiting are the billionaires. And then
Yeah.
the billionaires just want to blame every other 1% other than them. But it's pretty clear to the younger generation that the opportunities aren't there. And what they've realized is the only way they can create those opportunities is to take power, right? And then try to create those opportunities for themselves. Healthcare, and I've said it a million times, healthcare is not about universal healthcare. It's not because the young generation are sick, okay, and they want to go to the doctor, right? It's about mobility, right? Right now, if you're young, your mobility is either tied to your parents, right, or it's tied to your job, okay? And your job ain't affording you the ability to earn anything. Okay. So they want to have the American dream of having opportunity. And they now know that one of the biggest impediments toward them having that opportunity is healthcare. Okay. It's capitalism, people. This is not socialism or communism. This is capitalism. This is innovation. This is what America was supposed to be about.
Yeah. We should, and every other developed nation has healthcare, and a lot of them have free education too. Like we should want to invest in these younger people. We should want to, assist in their education. At least the first couple of years of college paid for. That's you want the next generation to keep the country going. And these most of these billionaires are old farts that could give a shit about the younger generation.
Most of the politicians are old farts who
Yeah,
couldn't give
that's
a
true.
shit about the young generation, right? I mean, like these people keep getting older and older, right? And then on the Democratic side, they tell younger people, "Wait your turn," okay? And it's like, and the younger people did this in the Republican Party with the Tea Party many years ago. They were like, "You people are old. We're getting rid of you." But now the Tea Party has become corrupted, okay?
Oh
And
God,
now
yes.
they're right, like, and by the same billionaires because you get there, you get in the game, and the power, right? It because nobody is holding them accountable. It's sort of like you have unlimited power and you could just do whatever the hell you want. And it's just like you have to hold these people accountable. You have to hold them to their votes, and if they're not voting the way you want or there are issues with their votes, then we have to call them out and hold them responsible and not just take the first answer that they give us, you
Yeah.
know, or have them provide proof. I'm sick and tired of politicians because they are the ones in office turning around saying, well, this is what it is, and providing no proof and then saying, well, I received classified documents or I had a briefing, right? Bullshit. I'm sorry, we live in America. Democracy dies when government lies. So here we go. Show me the proof. Let me live in my democracy and let me make my own informed decision, right? But too often, and we saw this locally, the news media becomes stenographers for our elected officials.
Yeah. Yeah. That is very true. So Tau SW. Oh my God, that is so cool. Many states have free community college. I know. Believe California is one of those states, right? Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just don't get it. Well, this current regime does not like education. They don't want an educated population, right? Trump's own words. Stupid people love me, and so
But
yeah. Oh,
you
go ahead.
you 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 make it sound like it's just Trump. We live in New
Oh,
York.
it's
We live
all
in
of
one
them,
of the
right?
richest. We live in one of the richest. Why isn't education more affordable in New York for everybody?
That's a good point. That's something to talk to Hochul
We
about.
we talked about universal. So we talk about universal pre-K, right? A few years ago, we were celebrating universal pre-K. New York City has universal pre-K. Okay, it's very sporadic in the rest of the state whether you actually get universal pre-K or not. In fact, most of the rest of the state, universal pre-K hasn't hit yet. Okay.
Is that something that's being done with local governments, or is that a state
No,
thing?
it's well, I mean, it's partly in it's school districts. I mean, everything is school district based, you know? And it was optional. It was deemed optional. It was an unfunded mandate that was deemed optional, right? Like, I mean, like this is how governments work, right? The state government will say, okay, we'll fund it 50%, but you have to find the other 50%. Where's the other 50% coming from? If you're a local school district, it comes from property taxes.
Right.
And nobody wants to raise property taxes because property taxes are very high. Not only that, if you're a school district, you have a cap and you're not allowed to go over that cap. So, in order to add a new program, it costs a lot of money.
Mm, yeah. All right. Well, there you go.
And you have to have teachers and you have to have and you're paying pensions and you're paying salaries and you're paying I mean, like there is so much money that goes into all of this stuff. But what we'd rather do is spend money on consultants. And it's like give money to some big corporation, right, who's gonna subcontract to another corporation who's gonna subcontract to another corporation, right, and
Oh.
and you end up getting garbage, but everybody else made a lot of money along the way off of your tax dollars for something that we already knew the answer to.
Always the way. Unreal. Yeah, this
Yeah.
your textiles at work. Well, that's what's happening now. Definitely at the federal level.
It's happening at the state level. It's happening. I'm telling you, this is happening all over the place, right? We talked about this with the DMV, right? We talked about this with
Yes.
fast enterprises. We spoke
Remind
about that.
everybody. You remind everybody what's happening there, because I don't know if people have seen that episode.
Yeah, the DMV went AI on us, right? So it used to be you go to court and say it was some type of speeding ticket, and the judge would tell you how many points that you were going to be how many points that you were going to be awarded, right? Like, you get points on your license, all right? And there was this whole thing about, judges have essentially control to do, right? No longer the case, okay? The new rules went into effect in February, right? Now they have traffic cameras everywhere. Those traffic cameras are all linked to AI, okay? So that AI right now can create a driver's profile on you. So if you get caught for speeding, okay, it's no longer the judge assigning you points, it's AI assigning you points based on the driver profile it creates, right, of your driving based on all the data it's collecting from all the cameras and everything else. Okay? So you may think, all right, it was, this is going to be 3 points, and it turns out to be 5 points because catches you speeding everywhere, right? AI now all of a sudden can catch you speeding everywhere, and you don't even know that that's how they came up with that because it's in some computer, right, in the back of some computer that created this profile, and you're just going to get a letter in the mail that says, all right, you were assigned this many points, and that's it, done. No appeals, no
That
nothing.
is that is sick. Yeah, and that's happening right here in the state of New York. Yep.
This is
Uh,
so like I get very very frustrated when people talk about like New York isn't different than any other place, right? Democrats aren't really different than Republicans, right? We're not the same, right? Granted, we're not the same, but we're not different either. Okay? Got to
I
think
guess that.
about that and understand what that means.
So there you go, guys. So be choosy with your candidates. But let me ask you this though: if you don't have a progressive, an option such as that, so it's a Democrat or Republican, what do you think we should do here?
I said it right? I already said it. I mean, there's not going to be anybody really running against Pat Ryan. I'm going to vote for Pat Ryan, right? I mean,
Okay.
the fact is right, and I'm sure, right, and no one's going to be running against Hochul. I'm sure that I'll be voting for Hochul too. But at the end of the day, if you don't think I'm going to speak up in the hopes of changing her policy views, okay, then you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. This is the one time that they actually will listen to us. This is the one time that we have an ability to affect change. Okay? We continuously yell at Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries about being bad leaders, right? And granted, they are, but we've moved them a little bit. Not much, but we have moved them, right? Like, I mean, they were both ready to vote for the DHS bill. The DHS bill has been sitting dormant for a long time, right? DHS hasn't been funded for months. So, you know, now during election season is our opportunity as voters, right, to exercise our First Amendment rights in political speech to move them in the direction that we want them to go.
Yep. And that's it. So speak up, ask questions, contact. If you have a question for Kathy Hochul, contact her office, contact her campaign officer, and ask what's their position. I will say this. She did agree to the what are they calling it, the pet-a-terre, the $5 million, the tax on the $5 million properties from billionaires living out of state. They have a cute little name for it.
Listen,
but she wasn't wanting to tax billionaires before then.
No.
And so so again, we got somewhere.
Mamdani has the right path towards moving the narrative. He has now shown us the way. We need Democrats in Republican. I really think everybody, right? We should all be fighting for something. Instead of being the group of people that are fighting against stuff, right? Republicans say that they're fighting against Democrats. Democrats say they're fighting against Trump. What do any of us stand for? What are we all fighting for? Right? I can tell you when I ran, I was fighting for roads, water, sewer, infrastructure, right? Bridges, right? I was fighting for my community so that we could live in a nice community. That's what I was fighting for. Okay? What are these people fighting for? Can you tell me? Can anybody tell me? Other than the platitudes, I'm fighting for the working class. What actual policies are they putting forth that show that they are? Right? Where are the bills? Where are the votes?
There's the question.
Are you voting? Right. Are you voting for AIPAC? Or are you voting with your constituents? Are you putting forth bills to restore the ACA credits? Are you putting forth bills for single payer health care? Right? Like, what are you actually doing? What are you advocating for? Because I don't hear it.
There you go. So what do you think, folks? We're going to get ready to wrap up here. So if anybody have any comments or questions that you want to shoot to us, shoot to Neil. Neil, our resident expert here.
Thanks for listening, guys. That's all I got to say. Thanks for listening.
You know what? Neil rants a lot, but he makes a lot of sense. And so, I'm so
I know
appreciative.
Denise doesn't like me talking. Denise doesn't want me to
talk. What are you talking about? I let you talk all the time. What are you talking about?
I know you do. Thank you, Denise. I do appreciate it.
Yeah,
Denise is great. We all have to give her a huge hand. She is great. She does all the work behind the scenes. She is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
This program we would not even be on the air if it wasn't for her. So definitely give her props, and let's all give her a big round of applause. Absolutely. Thank you,
Thank you,
Denise.
Mary. Thank you, Mary. So folks, we're gonna wrap up here. Please continue to leave comments. We check frequently to see if there's anybody have questions or anything, and we'll come back to them. We can always address them in next week's episode or over the weekend. We do our recordings over the weekend, and as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. It goes a long way to helping us to build this channel and also to help other people find us. All right. And, thanks for everybody who engaged. And we will see you soon, guys. We love you. Take care.
Peace out.